On News Hour tonight, TUC protests on paid allowances as FG pledges payment within 48 hours. PDP Senate caucus reject Atiku's coalition move ahead of 2027. CBN retains interest rates at 27.5%. Khartoum accuses UAE of direct involvement in drone strikes on
Khartoum recently cut diplomatic ties with the UAE, accusing...
Hello, good evening, and welcome to News Hour on Trust TV. I am Fatima Ahmed Musa. The news. A protest organized by the Trade Union Congress TUC over unpaid allowances has compelled the federal government to pledge payment of the overdue allowance within the next 48 hours. According to the union, the protest was also to draw government's attention to other outstanding entitlements owed workers, some dating back to January 2025. The report.
The workers, dressed in red attire, blocked the main gate of the Ministry of Finance, effectively shutting down operations and disrupting traffic flow. They carried placards with messages such as "Wale Edun, release the payment file," and "Please pay our entitlements," demanding immediate payment from the Finance Minister, Wale Edun. The protest was marked by the refusal of the protesters to engage with lower-ranking officials and their insistence on speaking directly with the Finance Minister. Attempts by ministry officials to open dialogue was rebuffed, while the protest continued throughout the morning, causing significant disruption. In response to the protest, the federal government gave a firm assurance that all outstanding payments, including allowances and wage awards, would be settled within the next 48 hours.
In the next 48 hours, you will receive your payment. So on this note, I want to thank you people for agreeing to allow us to enter the office so that we do our work for you to have what you are looking for. Your voice has been heard, and we will not disappoint you.
This promise was made to the protesting workers under the TUC as a direct reaction to their demands for improved welfare conditions and the clearing of arrears.
So we want to thank you, sir, for finding us worthy to come and speak to the working people. We want to believe you on your honor that you will pull this through. We've seen the approval. We want it to translate into Naira and Kobo within a reasonable time. In the meantime, we are not calling off this action, sir. We are only going to suspend for a while. We will provide further instruction on our platform when we will resume here tomorrow. I wish to also put on notice, Honorable Pamsek, that all affiliates of TUC have been put on red alert. Tomorrow, we will converge here. But I tell you, comrades, further directives will be, you will see it on your platform on the next line of action. We will be reasonable.
At the end, the protest successfully pressured the government to commit to resolving the issue of unpaid allowances promptly.
The FCT chapter of the Nigerian Union of Teachers and Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees says they will not only consider suspending their ongoing strike when primary school teachers begin to receive their backlog of arrears. Union executive made this known during recent meetings with the 6 area council chairmen in Abuja, which ended without a resolution. Despite the recent implementation of the 70,000 minimum wage, the union insists that over 16 billion in 8 months arrears, alongside other entitlements such as peculiar allowances and wage awards, must be paid. The union supports FCT Minister Nyesom Wike's directive to use 10% of FCT IRS revenue to settle these debts. While Algon appealed for the strike to be called off, the union urged workers to remain calm as they await the minister's response. FCT NUT Chairman Abdullahi Muhammad Shafaz confirmed that discussions are ongoing. The House of Representatives Committee on Basic Education and Examination body says it's investigating the recent glitches that disrupted the last Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination (UTME). Speaking in Abuja, the committee disclosed that its preliminary findings suggest the widespread failure of candidates was caused by human errors, not a technical malfunction. The lawmakers offered a public apology to Nigerians and promised to comprehensively investigate. While calling for urgent reforms to prevent future crises, they warned that education system cannot survive another scandal of this scale and pledged to recommend measures to restore credibility to public examinations. The committee says a full report will be presented to National Assembly in the coming weeks.
But we believe that it was not the glitch, a technical error. It was human error. That is our primary finding. That is a human error. There is a human error. And again, Professor Loyede is not working alone, the registrar. He works with people. And I am not holding brief for the registrar. But again, looking at his antecedent, he has been doing his bit. He has been doing his bit. So we are not holding brief for him. You understand? But something happened that have not happened before. And somebody who is saddled with responsibility of leadership took responsibility and apologized. And we are also apologizing on behalf, because we are the committee in the House of Representatives oversighting JAMB. So we are also apologizing on behalf of the institution.
The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has announced that it will, on Wednesday, release the result of the 379,000 candidates who sat the rescheduled Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination between Friday and Monday. JAMB rescheduled the examination following widespread outcry over mass failure during the initial UTME. The board admitted to technical and human errors, especially in Lagos and Southeast states, which significantly affected candidates' performance. Out of the 1.9 million candidates who sat this year's UTME, over 1.5 million scored below 200 marks out of a possible 400, prompting widespread concern among stakeholders. Following sustained pressures, JAMB investigated the mass failure and discovered technical and human errors in its system. JAMB Registrar Professor Ishaq Oluede last week publicly accepted responsibility for the errors, even shedding tears while announcing responsibility for the errors, even shedding tears while announcing a receipt for the affected candidates. Speaking on Monday, JAMB spokesman Fabian Benjamin confirmed that results of the rescheduled exams will be released on Wednesday. And now the Senate caucus of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has rejected moves by the party's 2023 presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar to form a coalition under the PDP ahead of 2027 general election. The coalition is aimed at unseating incumbent President Tinubu. However, the Senate PDP caucus, in a reaction, said it's the party that should drive a coalition if there is such need and not an individual. While the caucus admitted that an individual has the right to work with anyone the individual wishes to work with, it maintained that driving coalition under the party is an exclusive reserve of the party.
The Senate caucus of the PDP states that it is not averse to the idea and ideals of coalition. The caucus observes the synthesization of ideas and creating of harmony of coalition should be driven by political parties and not individuals. And as the biggest of all the opposition parties, the PDP's umbrella is big enough to accommodate all persons desirous of coalition. The People's Democratic Party, therefore, should drive the coalition when and if it becomes necessary. Finally, the Senate caucus of the PDP states emphatically that the party is a big brand that is competitive. In all nooks and crannies of Nigeria, there are PDP members. The caucus asserts, therefore, that out of the truths of the current conflicts in the party will arise a new or renewed vibrant party.
As Nigeria's opposition party struggles with internal division that weakens the relevance and electoral prospects, the Labour Party stands out not for its strength, but for its festering leadership crisis. In this report, Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman examines the turbulence within the Labour Party, once held as the rising third force in Nigeria's politics. He speaks with party stakeholders, supporters, and political analysts on the road ahead, if there is one.
The Labour Party's dramatic rise in the 2023 general election, powered by former Anambra State Governor Peter Obi, saw it clinch third place on Nigeria's political ladder. But that momentum now appears to be slipping through the cracks of internal discord. A bitter leadership tussle, multiple court cases and factional infighting have plunged the party into turmoil. 3 different blocs currently claim control of the Labour Party, with the Julius Abure-led faction asserting dominance at the national level. This group has declared the expulsion of individuals aligned with the Senator Nenadi Usman-led caretaker committee, which enjoys the backing of Peter Obi and Abia State Governor Alex Otti.
I sit in my house too and I'm told that I'm not a member of Labour Party. And the people who are saying I'm not a member of Labour Party are the same people who, each time the Labour Party needed one thing done or the other, they came to me to ask for me to help sort it out. So I'm wondering today, is it because first they said I'm a woman, women should not be chairman of a party. So is it because I'm a woman that suddenly they now wake up and tell me that I'm not a member of the party?
Nenadi is not a bona fide and registered card-carrying member of the Labour Party. I'm telling her, let her display her membership card so that the whole world will just scrutinize it.
Observers say the Labour Party is now fighting for its political soul. Deep-seated interests, ideological conflicts, and perceived external influences have prevented meaningful reconciliation, leaving many to question what it means for the party's future, particularly ahead of the 2027 elections.
There is the need for the political actors to have a rethink around what they truly stand for, because the reality is it's beginning to become so apparent that they don't stand for anything. And as the saying goes, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything.
While the party's internal bickering continues, its 2023 presidential flag bearer Peter Obi remains active in ongoing coalition talks. But its indecision about the next political direction has created anxiety among supporters, many of whom feel politically opened.
I am feeling disappointment, and I always pray to God to give us a leadership like Senator Nenadi Usman, who should fix the party into others.
Professor Mukhtar Imam argues that something drastic must happen, either within the Labour Party or across the broader opposition, to present a viable alternative to the ruling party by 2027.
There's the need to have an entrenched and a formidable political force that will create some room for checks and balances.
Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) continues to await the conclusion of legal battles over the party's leadership before taking a definitive stance. But with the ruling APC firming up its political strategies, the Labour Party's lingering crisis may further delay any real opposition realignment. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
A former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, has accused the Nigerian judiciary of corruption, claiming that many judges and lawyers have compromised their role in delivering justice. Speaking on Monday during the Law Week of Nigerian Bar, have Association Buhari branch in Abuja, El-Rufai said the Nigerian public no longer trusts the judiciary due to frequent delays in justice and decision preserved to be influenced by bias and external interest. The former governor lamented the increasing use of extra experte orders in political matters, accusing some legal practitioners of manipulating the court system for political advances.
Once upon a time, ordinary citizens tiptoed past the homes of judges. We were so scared of judges. I remember when we were sent to Justice Ben's home to deliver a message, we make sure that he's not at home before we go, because everyone was so scared of the kind, nice, and decent Justice Muhammad Bello. May his soul rest in peace as well. But not any longer. Now judges are abused and maligned with almost reckless abandon and with no consequences. They are physically and mentally assaulted, sometimes roundly disrespected by the ordinary citizen. How indeed are the mighty fall. But we must also resist simplistic narratives. Practically all judicial officers work under immense pressure while being poorly resourced and poorly protected.
And now the Nigerian Bar Association has kicked against the proposed compulsory voting bill in the House of Representatives, describing it as coercive, unconstitutional and threat to democratic freedom. The bill, which passed second reading, seeks to amend the Electoral Act to mandate voting by all eligible citizens with penalties of up to 100,000 or 6 months imprisonment for non-compliance. In a statement, the NBA said the bill violates the 1999 Constitution's provisions on freedom of choice and political participation, arguing that it fails to address deeper issues like insecurity, electoral malpractice, and low public trust. The association urged the National Assembly to abandon the proposal and instead prioritize electoral credibility, security, and civic education to address voter apathy. And now the Central Bank of Nigeria on Tuesday retained monetary policy rate at 27.5%. CBN Governor Olayemi Kadosu made the disclosure in Abuja while briefing press on the outcome of the 300th meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Apex Bank. He said all 12 members of the committee were present and the decision of the committee was unanimous to maintain rate at 27.5% and cash reserve ratio for deposit money bank at 50% and 16% for merchant banks. Cardoso added that the liquidity ration of banks was also maintained at 30%. He noted that the committee's decision was hinged on moderation of food inflation and success in the fight against insecurity, especially in farming communities.
Seem positive, but macroeconomic fundamentals are playing out. In spite of the fact, like you said, there have been positive endorsements from, all kinds of bodies that make it a point of duty to observe and critique the moves that various countries are making to ensure they have stability in their economies. And your question basically is, well, that may seem positive, but how does that translate to getting the feeling that things are better? Now, I think it's important to say that investors, and let's face it, without investments, economies don't grow. Investors don't go to where there's instability. So I think that is the first thing to understand. On the journey, And this is a journey. Investors don't go out to invest to lose money. They go out to invest because there's stability in an economy and they can plan.
And now joining us via Zoom is Aliyu Ilyas. He's an economist and a development expert to give us more on this. Thank you so much for joining us, and good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Okay, so what is the implication of this bullish stance by the CBN on Nigerian economy?
Right, I think it's quite expected that the stand will be this, because looking at different indices that have been happening, most people, although most of us are actually happy on having it reduced because the MPR is affecting Nigeria economy, but we know for sure that they will not want to also increase it, and reducing it also have a very positive effect, because if you look at most challenges that we have globally, not even beyond Nigeria, we have challenges, we have uncertainty in global economy. We have our issue of reduction in oil price. We also have continuous volatility in the forex market. So looking at all these indices, this for sure we expect them to actually retain and maintain the status quo.
Referenced investors' confidence multiple times in his speech. Is there a perception that this move is catering to the international market more than what is happening domestically?
Right, like you rightly said, no investor wants to come to an economy that there's no stability. And if you look at Nigeria economy now, the stability is also a serious challenge. Because if you look at our forex market, you see that the naira value to dollar is actually hovering around 1.5 to 1,600. If you also look at it the other way around, you will discover that we also have insecurity that's actually affecting and ravaging the economy. So a lot of things shows that there's no stability. And to have foreign direct investment, there must be stable economy. The thing must sustain the standard or the lower trajectory of some of those indices, and that's what will bring about much more investment. And I'm happy it's happening on it, because it needs to speak to fiscal policy in this area. I also need to look at our trade policy to make sure that we have some level of stability, so that there will be confidence for investors to come in and invest as expected.
Okay, so is this good or bad for business, and what will be the ripple effects of this on Nigerians?
Right. 27.5 MPR is bad for our businesses already, because no one wants to go and borrow money without making profit. So if you go to borrow money and it's above 30% interest rate, how will we survive? So that's why most small business cannot survive it. Most manufacturing companies are also complaining, and that's why if CBN cannot reduce it, they should not increase it. And perhaps a lot of indices have also supported them. Most of their expectations were met. We could see inflation is dropping. Food prices are reducing as well to an extent, though even though it's marginal. That's a sign that one of what they expect. Though most economies are thrown at a hawkish approach, because it appears they are sacrificing growth to make sure they reduce inflation. While it is now, it is better to leave it as it is compared to increasing it at all.
Thank you so much, Aliyu Ilyas, for your contribution this evening.
Thank you for having me.
And now, moving on to more stories. A stray bullet has allegedly killed a student who was heading to an examination center to sit for the ongoing West African Senior School certificate exam organized by the West African Examination Council, WAEC, in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. The incident happened along the Gbagi Market Road in Igbeda local government area of the state, when a stray bullet allegedly fired by a police officer who was pursuing a suspect hit and allegedly killed the student on Tuesday. Investigations revealed that the boy was on a motorcycle with his father and twin brother When the incident struck, witness said the victim was immediately rushed to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead on arrival.
We are live at the secretariat now with the corpse of the little boy. We are here live. Let me see the bullet. This is the bullet.
The National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, Southwest Zone D has condemned the fatal shooting of a wassce candidate in Ibadan, allegedly by a police stray bullet during a high-speed chase. The student was reportedly in his father's car on his way to write his exams when he was struck by a bullet fired by officers pursuing a Hilux vehicle in the Alaka area of Ibadan on Tuesday. In a joint statement signed by Zone D Coordinator Owolewa Taiwo, General Secretary Oluwole Olutunde, and PRO Kuku Isaiah Orumidayo, NANS described the incident as a national disgrace and a direct attack on Nigerian students. The association called on Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, the State Commissioner of Police, and the Inspector General of Police to launch an immediate investigation and ensure justice is served. NANS vowed to pursue accountability for the student's death and reiterates its commitment to safeguarding the rights and welfare of students nationwide. You're watching News Hour on Trust TV. Coming up after the break. Nigeria's bee decline poses growing threat to food security. This and more when we return. Do stay. Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is News Hour on Trust TV. Here's a recap of our top stories again. We told you that TUC protests unpaid allowances as FG pledges payment within 48 hours. Plus, PDP Senate caucus rejects Atiku's coalition move ahead of 2027. Now moving on to more stories. Anti-corruption crusaders in Nigeria are brainstorming on ways to ensure that assets illegally acquired by individuals are returned to their rightful owners. This they intend to do through proper tracing, management and recovery as part of the fight against corruption in the country. Noel Samson has more.
Asset recovery management is a process of identifying, tracing and returning stolen or illegal obtained assets, often from the proceeds of corruption or crime, to their rightful owners or to the country from which they were taken. It involves both the legal and practical aspects of recovering assets, including managing seized or confiscated assets. In Nigeria, asset tracing, recovery, and management are crucial aspects of the fight against corruption. Nigeria is estimated to have lost over $400 billion to corruption since its independence, with a significant portion of these assets lost through illicit financial flows. While the government has recovered some assets, the actual amount recovered is difficult to verify. In 2016, the government stated that it has recovered $9.1 billion in stolen money and assets, with additional funds still being sought. With institutions and frameworks that play a key role in asset recovery and management in place, many have been wondering how effective they are and how can they be improved on.
Yeah, a lot is being done. A lot is being done, especially in the area of legal framework. We have enough laws. We have all the institutions doing their jobs. But as you know, money laundering is a process. It takes time to actually convict people. So because countries are struggling, the smartest thing to do is to go for the assets instead of try to convict people.
The issue of corruption is quite endemic, and it's not something that will be taken out by a whisker. It requires a detailed, committed work within the framework of a country. It starts with attitudinal change. It starts with commitment and the role of leadership. Leadership must demonstrate strong commitments and resilience to fight corruption. Without those kind of deep commitments, changes will not be made or not be achieved.
At the forefront of the fight against corruption in Nigeria are the Independent Corruption Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, and the Code of Conduct Bureau, CBB. The heads of both agencies told Trust TV what they have been doing in this regard.
We recently blocked amount of money, which is over $1 billion, that might have gone out of public purse, because we feel like there is need for us also to prevent the taking away of the government's money illegally, instead of allowing it to just go with that. So, and we have been making a lot of efforts to ensure that we recover proceeds of crime that was taken out of public purse. And also at the continental level, we have Africa Asset Recovery Practitioners Forum, whereby we are coming together to ensure that all African countries, we put our hands on deck to ensure that the proceeds of crime that were taken out of the African continent, we trace, recover, repatriate them back to Africa, and also to be properly managed.
Right now, there is one public servant that we have seen, he has declared over 50 billion as a declaration. So we are still investigating that. We have not reached a situation where we can go and say we are going to recover it. But the first stage is for us to identify those infractions. And once we identify this infraction, then we are going to go and verify what that person has declared. And then from there, we can take that person to the court for recovery.
Asset tracing, recovery, and management are crucial for several reasons, particularly in combating corruption and financial crime. It helps to identify and seize illicit assets, ensuring that proceeds of crime are not used to fund further criminal activities. This process also allows for the return of stolen assets to their rightful owners or the public treasury, deterring future criminal behavior. Noel Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
With bees responsible for pollinating nearly 75% of the world's food crops, the sharp decline in their population poses a serious threat to global food security, and Nigeria is not exempt. As the world marks World Bee Day, attention is shifting to the country's largely untapped apiculture industry and the environmental pressures threatening the future of pollinators. Trust TV's Abubakar Abdullahi Galadima reports.
Beekeeping in Nigeria remains a niche sector despite the country's vast potential. According to FAO data, Nigeria produces less than 10% of the honey it consumes, relying heavily on imports, while thousands of rural livelihood could be supported by local honey production. But beyond economics, the role of bees in preserving biodiversity and supporting agriculture cannot be overstated.
The ministry fully recognizes the significance of apiculture and its contributions to the nation's agricultural sector, and is poised to provide the requisite leadership to unlock the great opportunities inherent therein. The bold and deliberate decision of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to develop all subsectors of animal agriculture through the creation of the Ministry of Livestock Development is a challenge fully embraced under my watch. That is the minister talking here, and the honeybee industry will not be an exception.
At a commemorative event in Abuja, environmentalists and industry advocates raised alarm over unchecked use of pesticide, deforestation and climate change, all of which are contributing to pollinator decline in Nigeria.
Deforestation, cutting down of trees and burning of bushes, indiscriminate use of pesticides, all these affect, the existence of bees. And with that, everybody is aware of the climate change issues that we are dealing with, globally. So the government is doing its best to, sensitize the people, to refrain from bush burning, cutting down of trees. When you cut down the tree, you're supposed to plant another one.
For young entrepreneurs like Yusuf Ademo of the Youth for Apiculture Initiative, the issue is also one of opportunity. He believes beekeeping can address youth unemployment and promote green entrepreneurship if supported with training, access to funding, and greater public awareness.
We are sensitizing the youth
and train them in a commercial beekeeping, not substantial beekeeping, in such a way that they can be self-employed and then they can contribute their own quota into the Nigerian society. And I'm happy today we have close to like 50 youths that they are having their earning on the shelf of our Nigerian store, whereby we are changing the narrative and then we are making that progress.
Participants at the event, which featured an awareness walk from Eagle Square to Veterinary Council of Nigeria, included students, environmentalists, and representatives from regulatory bodies like NAFDAC and SON, all calling for stronger advocacy and investment in the apiculture value chain. As Nigeria faces rising threat from climate stress, deforestation and food insecurity, the bee may hold more answers than it gets credit for. But without urgent action to protect pollinators and promote local apiculture, the buzz around their importance may soon fade. Abubakar Abdullahi Galadima, Trust TV News, Abuja.
The Nigerian Senate has approved the bill to amend the National Assembly Service Pension Board Act 2003 for its second reading. The approval was secured during its presentation on the floor of the House on Tuesday. Senate leader Bamidele Okpeyemi, who sponsored the bill, emphasized that the legislation seeks to reform the pension system for National Assembly members by reinstating a contributory pension scheme. Supporting the bill, Senators Barau Jibrin and Tahir Manguno highlighted its significance and timely nature, noting that it will establish a framework beneficial to National Assembly staff. In his remarks, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, decried the existing inappropriate pension scheme, which has adversely affected the performance of staffers.
To the contributory pension scheme by ensuring a transparent and accountable system, to reintroduce gratuity payments that fairly compensate retirees for their service, aligning with best practices in pension management, to restructure the composition of the governing board to eliminate potential conflicts of interest and enhance governance transparency.
It discourages corruption. Having a workable pension scheme. Once you know you have workable pension scheme, you are okay, it will help you by the time you leave. Why you go into corruption? You won't go into corruption. You'll be you'll be contented. That contentment will be there.
It's for the benefit of our staff, and then make sure that we get their inputs to know the best way forward. Because it's been in contention since we resumed in 2023. And as I speak now, even the pension board has not been constituted. And I know that billions and billions are lying. And then a lot of the staff who retired, some of them are sick, some have died without collecting their pensions and gratuities. So it's something we need to look at.
The House of Representatives is pushing for renewed action to revive Nigeria's struggling textile industry. At Tuesday's plenary, lawmakers urged the federal government to regulate the importation of foreign textiles as part of efforts to support local manufacturers. The report.
The lawmakers urged the federal government to regulate the importation of foreign textiles as part of efforts to protect and grow local production. The House also called for collaboration between the Ministries of Power and Industry to provide stable electricity to textile factories across the country. Additional support was requested from the Ministries of Finance and Industry to extend soft loans and credit access through the Bank of Industry.
Aware that revitalizing the textile industry will create employment, reduce social issues, boost revenue, diversify the economy, and enhance socio-economic development in the country. Concerned over the significant decline in the textile industry over the last 2 decades, resulting in the layoff of thousands of workers from companies like Kaduna Textile, Kano Textile, Aba Textile, United Nigeria Textile, Fast Spinners, among others.
In another development, lawmakers asked the federal government to assess storm damage in Jeddo, Ubokodo and Wharton communities in Delta State. The motion followed reports of extensive damage caused by a recent rain and windstorms in the area. The House During Tuesday's plenary, also passed for second reading a bill authorizing over 1.7 trillion naira for the 2025 budget of the Federal Capital Territory. 150 billion naira set aside for personnel, 343 billion naira for overhead costs, while over 1.2 trillion naira is allocated for capital projects.
I rise to move that the bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Federal Capital Territory Administration's Statutory Revenue Fund of the Federal Capital Territory Administration account the total sum of 1,783,823,708,392 naira only.
The House also advanced the bill to establish the Private Intelligence and Investigation Council. If passed, the council will oversee private firms ensuring ethical and professional standards.
The bill for an establishment of Private Intelligence and Investigation Council to establish a regulatory framework that ensures professionalism, ethical conduct and accountability of private intelligence and investigation firms, standardize the industry's practice, provide accreditation and certification, promote continuous training and development, foster collaboration between private and public security sectors, enhance the integrity and effectiveness of private intelligence and investigation.
Meanwhile, the Non-Communicable Disease Alliance is calling on the National Assembly to prioritize hypertension screening and management. The group also advocated for a budget line to support the fight against other non-communicable disease nationwide.
Dedicated budget line for hypertension and non-communicable diseases, to recommit to meeting the 15% Abuja Declaration target for health sector funding with clear NCD targets, especially expansion of hypertension in the national health insurance coverage.
As lawmakers deliberate across diverse sectors, all eyes remain on the outcomes of these motions and proposed legislation.
A popular Kano TikToker, Murja Ibrahim Kunya, has pledged guilty to the one-count amended charge on naira abuse referred against her by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. Justice Simon Amobida of the Federal High Court, Kano, has therefore fixed May 20th for conviction and sentencing of the TikToker. Having previously pledged guilty to the charge, the EFCC applied to amend the charge, which the court granted. Ahmed Dati sends in this report.
Murja was arraigned in March this year by the EFCC and she pleaded guilty to the one-count charge of naira abuse. The case has suffered several adjournments since then. The amended charge reads that Murja Ibrahim Kunya on the 28th December 2023 at Tahir Guest Palace Hotel, while dancing in one of the rooms, tampered with naira by spraying and dancing on it, contrary to Section 21, Subsection 1 of the CBN Act 2007. EFCC counsel Musa Isa asked the court to convict and sentence Murja, having pleaded guilty to the charge. He tendered as exhibit the amended charge dated 9th May 2025, a video recording of Murja spraying and dancing on the naira notes, and her voluntary statement dated 26 January 2025. Her counsel Abubakar Saka did not object to any of the exhibit tendered. Justice Amobida held that judgment will be delivered at a later date, noting that the defendant has shown remorse and the prosecution should be part of the reformatory process. The judge also recommended to the EFCC utilize her brain as a content creator with over 1 million followers on TikTok to be a brand ambassador to lead the campaign against naira abuse instead of condemning her to prison. The prosecution and defense counsel declined to comment on the matter. Ahmed Datti, Trust TV News, Kano.
The Adamawa and Taraba Command of the Nigerian Customs Service has intercepted valuables worth over 104 million naira. The seized items include smuggled 36,835 liters of PMS packed in 1,219 jerrycans, 101 pieces of raw donkey skin packed in 7 sacks, among others. Briefing newsmen in Yola, the Adamawa state capital, the controller Garba Bashir said the items were intercepted on different dates and locations across the command. He revealed that some of the seized PMS were earlier auctioned to the public in strict adherence to the standard operating procedures as contained in the NCS Act 2023.
To maintain this momentum, the command had repositioned all its operatives across the frontier, not minding all the threats, intimidations, such as assault and harassment received from the economic saboteurs, as seen and witnessed in some social platforms. This will not deter us from discharging our official duties. We will not relent in this fight against the economic saboteurs until they are suffocated, crippled, and thrown out of this illicit business.
You're still watching Trust News Hour. We'll return shortly. Welcome back. At the backdrop of the rising food insecurity caused by intensified conflict and climate-related shock on farming activities across the country, Nigeria's food importation rose by 16% year-on-year to $2.5 billion in 2024 from $2.13 billion in 2023. Details of data on food imports in the quarterly statistical bulletins of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, showed that Nigeria's food imports rose in 3 out of the 4 quarters in 2024. In the first quarter, food imports rose by 40% quarter-on-quarter to $689.88 million from $493.24 million, and by 1.8% year-on-year from $677.61 million on first quarter of 2023. However, the second quarter food imports dropped to $547.7 million, representing 21% and 20% declines respectively from $689.88 million in first quarter of 2024 and $685.37 million in second quarter of 2023. The CBN said that the share of food import in total imports fell to 13.15% in fourth quarter of 2024 from 18.13% in third quarter of 2024. And now away from Nigeria, Sudan has accused the United Arab Emirates of carrying out a drone attack on the wartime administrative capital of Port Sudan earlier this month. Speaking in New York, Khartoum's ambassador to the United Nations, Al-Harith Idris, alleged that the operation was launched from the UAE military base with support from Emirati naval vessels in the Red Sea. It is the first time that Sudan has accused the Gulf state of direct military intervention in its civil war against the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Idris also claimed that the May 4th strike on Port Sudan was a revenge for an army attack a day earlier on an alleged Emirati warplane in the RCF-controlled city of Niala. Khartoum recently cut diplomatic ties with the UAE, accusing it of arming and funding the rebel group in the deadly war, which is in its third year. The UAE has denied accusations and did not immediately comment on this latest statement. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy has paused trade negotiations with Israel and summoned the Israeli ambassador in protest over the expansion of Israel's military operations in Gaza. This comes as Israeli airstrikes since midnight have killed at least 87 people, including 22 in an attack on a displacement shelter in Gaza City. The Gaza Health Ministry reports at least 53,573 Palestinians killed and 121,688 wounded. The government media office estimates the actual death toll exceeds 61,700, citing thousands missing on the rubble. In response to the renewed offensive, leaders of Canada, France, and the UK have warned Israel of potential concrete action if hostilities do not cease. Meanwhile, 22 countries are calling on Israel to allow urgent humanitarian aid into besieged enclave. And now in sport, Nigeria's Kadri Aruna beats Germany's Benedict Duda 4-2 in their rounds of 32 match in the National Table Tennis Federation World Championship currently underway in Doha, Qatar. Often referred to as the King of African Table Tennis, the 36-year-old professional player win over the higher-ranking German sees him move up to the round of 16. His spirited performance has kept Nigeria and Africa's hopes alive in the competition, which ends on Sunday. Aruna will face either third seed Hugo Calderano of Brazil or Kazakhstan Kirill Jesramenko in the next round. And now it's time for sport news. Let's join Kabir Lawan for more news.
The National Sports Commission (NSC) has wielded its big stick by barring 6 athletes from competing for medals at the ongoing 22nd National Sports Festival in Ogun State due to anti-doping issues. The athletes are Marcus Okon representing Akwa Ibom State in para-athletics, Ayabake Okweyemi representing Bayelsa State in gymnastics, and Karim Shukurat representing Lagos State in kickboxing. Others include Ogunsemilore Cynthia representing Bayelsa State in kickboxing, Animashaun Sophia representing Lagos State in para-weightlifting, and Omole Joshua representing Bayelsa State in kickboxing. The decision was made after a strategic joint meeting of the main organizing committee and the local organizing committee LOC of the Games on Monday. According to a statement signed by the Commission's Director of Press, Kehinde Ajayi, the decision is in line with global practices and the World Anti-Doping Agency WDA code. That's Sport News. I am Kabir Lawan.
And with that, we have come to the end of News Hour on Trust TV. Do not forget to watch us across all our social media platforms for more news, programs, and documentaries. I'm Fatima Ahmed Musa. Good night.